The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed near its ceiling. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in their designated sections, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some breathed methane, others required extreme cold, and a few existed as pure energy contained in specialized fields. Yet they all understood the same truth. The Council decided everything that mattered in civilized space. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the human podium, a small platform near the back of the chamber. The location itself told a story. The important species occupied the front rows, close to the central podium where decisions were made. Humanity sat in the rear, where junior members and petitioners were placed. She looked at the datapad in her hands one final time. The vote had concluded moments ago. Humanity's request for a seat on the Security Directorate had been denied. Again. For the third time in 20 years, the Zelthron representative was speaking now, his crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into dancing rainbows. The Security Directorate must be reserved for species with appropriate experience. Humanity, while useful in certain military capacities, lacks the diplomatic maturity required for such responsibility. Useful in certain military capacities, Sarah felt something cold settle in her chest. Humans made up 80% of the Council's peacekeeping forces. They patrolled the dangerous borders. They responded to pirate attacks. They stood between war and peace in a dozen sectors, and the Council called them useful in certain capacities. The decision is final, announced High Counselor Vexnoth, a being that looked like a floating mass of tentacles and eyes. Humanity's petition is denied. We move now to the next matter of point of order, Sarah said clearly. The chamber fell silent. Junior members rarely spoke unless directly addressed. Vexnoth's multiple eyes swiveled toward the human section. Ambassador Chen, there is no point of order. The vote is concluded. I understand, Sarah replied. I am not contesting the vote. I am delivering a formal statement from the United Earth government. Vexnoth's tentacles rippled with what might have been irritation. Very well. Be brief. Sarah tapped her datapad. Her words would now be transmitted simultaneously to every council world, translated into every language. This was not just for the chamber. This was for the galaxy. For 247 years, she began, humanity has been a member of the Galactic Council. In that time, we have served faithfully in every capacity requested of us. We have sent our soldiers to keep peace on borders we do not share. We have deployed our doctors to fight diseases that do not affect us. We have engineered solutions to problems that were not our own. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. Others looked bored. We have asked repeatedly for representation in decisions that affect us directly. We have requested seats on committees that deploy our soldiers and utilize our resources. These requests have been denied. We have been told we lack experience, maturity, and diplomatic sophistication. Sarah paused. In the human section behind her, the other members of Earth's delegation sat perfectly still. They knew what was coming. The entire human government knew. But the Council had no idea. Therefore, effective immediately, the United Earth government formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. All treaties, agreements, and obligations created under Council authority are hereby declared null and void. All human military personnel will return to Earth jurisdiction within 72 hours. All human scientists, engineers, and medical personnel will cease operations and return home. All economic agreements are terminated. The chamber erupted. The translator system struggled to keep up with the cacophony of voices, chitters, psychic projections, and chemical signals that conveyed shock, anger, and disbelief. You cannot, Vexnoth started. We can, and we have, Sarah said calmly. Humanity will no longer participate in a system that exploits our labor while denying us a voice. We wish the Council well in its future endeavors. A Thursian representative resembling a massive beetle rose on its hind legs. This is absurd. You think you can simply leave? You need us. Sarah smiled, and there was no warmth in it. With respect, Counselor Thiers, I believe you have that backwards. You will find that humanity was far more integral to Council operations than you realized. This is blackmail, shouted the Asari representative, Counselor Thexara. You are holding the galaxy hostage. Not at all, Sarah replied. We are simply choosing to stop working for free, or rather for the privilege of being called useful in certain capacities. If the Council wishes to reconsider humanity's status, our requirements are simple. Full voting membership on all major councils, including security, economic, and scientific directorates. Equal representation, equal voice. Nothing more, nothing less. The Zelthron representative laughed, a sound like wind through crystal chimes. You overestimate your importance. There are thousands of species in this galaxy. You are replaceable. Then you have nothing to worry about, Sarah said. She gathered her datapad and looked at the human delegation. We're done here. As one, the 37 human representatives stood and walked toward the exits. The chamber's noise grew louder behind them, but Sarah did not look back. They had prepared for anger. They had expected threats. None of it mattered anymore. Outside the council building, human ships were already lifting off from the diplomatic quarter. Sarah could see them through the massive windows. Transport vessels, medical ships, and a handful of military escorts. Every human in council space had received the same order. Come home, her communicator chimed. It was Admiral Okoye from the Defense Fleet. Ambassador, the council's inner circle is requesting an emergency session. They want you back in the chamber. Tell them I'm unavailable, Sarah said. We've said everything we need to say. They're claiming this is an act of war. Sarah snorted. We're leaving. How is that an act of war? Tell them to figure things out themselves. They're very experienced and diplomatically mature, after all. Behind her, she heard young Marcus Webb, a junior diplomat, speaking quietly to another human delegate. Do you think they'll actually realize what we did for them? The other diplomat, an older woman named Patricia Okafor, shook her head. Not immediately. They think we're bluffing. They believe we need them more than they need us. They'll understand soon enough. Sarah agreed silently. The council would learn. The galaxy was vast and complicated, and humanity had been holding together more pieces than anyone realized. They had been the glue in 1,000 small ways. The soldiers who actually showed up for dangerous assignments, the engineers who could fix anything with whatever was available, the doctors who treated species no one else would approach, the traders who took routes others deemed too risky. The humans had been called primitive, young, aggressive, unsophisticated. But they had also been everywhere, doing everything that needed doing, filling every gap that the older, prouder species considered beneath them. Now those gaps would reappear, and the council would have to face them alone. Sarah boarded her ship and looked back at the massive council building one last time. It was a beautiful structure, a monument to galactic civilization. Inside, representatives were probably still arguing about humanity's audacity, still dismissing the entire incident as a tantrum from an immature species. Let them think that. They would learn the truth soon enough. The ship lifted off, joining the stream of human vessels leaving council space. Sarah felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only exhaustion and a grim certainty that things were about to get very difficult for everyone involved. But humanity had tried patience. They had tried diplomacy. They had tried proving their worth through service. None of it had worked. Sometimes the only way to make people see your value was to stop providing it. The stars stretched ahead, and Earth waited beyond them. Behind them, the Galactic Council was about to discover what it truly meant to govern without humanity's helping hands. 3 weeks after humanity's withdrawal, Councilor Thexara sat in her private office reviewing reports from the Asari Confederation's outer territories. The numbers made no sense. They had to be wrong. She called her chief of operations. These trade figures, there must be an error. It shows a 73% increase in pirate attacks. The figures are correct, Counselor. The voice on the other end replied. Attacks have increased across all major trade routes in our sector. That's impossible. We have patrol schedules, defense protocols. Patrol schedules that assumed human fleet coverage, Counselor. They were handling the outer rim routes, the asteroid belt passages, and most of the night side approaches to our trading hubs. Thexara felt cold understanding wash over her. All those routes? Yes, Counselor. We're attempting to redirect our own forces, but we don't have enough ships, and our captains are reluctant. Those routes were assigned to humans because they were considered too dangerous for regular patrol duty. Too dangerous. The Asari had sent humans into danger because humans didn't seem to mind, and human soldiers rarely complained. Now those dangerous routes had no protection at all. Casualties? Thexara asked quietly. 17 merchant vessels lost in the past 2 weeks. Approximately 4,000 crew members dead or missing. Economic losses estimated at 40 billion credits and rising. Thexara closed her eyes. 4,000 dead. In 2 weeks. Increase patrols. Offer hazard bonuses to our captains. Whatever it takes. She disconnected and looked at the other reports piling up on her desk. Food shipments delayed. Medical supplies missing. Manufacturing quotas unmet. Every problem traced back to the same cause. Unsafe trade routes. The communicator chimed again. This time it was High Counselor Vex Noth, calling an emergency session. Thexara wasn't surprised. The entire council was probably drowning in similar reports. The chamber was fuller than usual when she arrived. Every major species had sent their representatives and the mood was tense. Vexnoth didn't waste time with formalities. The Vrexian situation has escalated, the High Counselor announced. They have crossed the neutral zone in force. Initial reports suggest a full-scale invasion of Keltharan space. Silence fell over the chamber. The Vrexian border conflict had been active for 30 years, but it had been contained, frozen. The Vrexians would make aggressive moves, and the peacekeepers would push them back. Neither side ever gained ground except there were no peacekeepers now. Where are our forces? Someone asked. Redeploying from other sectors, Vexnoth replied. We're pulling together a response force, but it will take weeks to organize. The Vrexians struck the moment the human peacekeepers withdrew. How many peacekeepers did we have on that border? Thexara asked, though she already knew the answer. The entire force was human, Vexnoth admitted. 40,000 soldiers, 1,200 ships. They maintained 17 border stations and ran constant patrols across a 3-light-year frontier. 40,000, someone repeated. We're supposed to replace 40,000 trained soldiers in weeks? A Thursian representative activated its communicator. The medical situation in the outer colonies is critical. The Zygoth fever outbreak has spread to 6 systems. Our doctors are requesting the human-developed vaccine and treatment protocols. Have we contacted the human medical authorities? Vexnoth asked. Yes. They informed us that the vaccine requires highly specialized production facilities and that the formula is Earth intellectual property. They're willing to negotiate licensing agreements through proper diplomatic channels. Proper diplomatic channels, Vexnoth repeated slowly. We don't have diplomatic channels with Earth anymore. We expelled them from the Council. They withdrew, someone corrected. The distinction hardly matters now. Thexara watched as report after report came in. The research station at Helios Prime was experiencing critical systems failures. Human technicians had maintained the old Forerunner equipment because no one else could understand its hybrid technology. Mining operations on 17 worlds had ground to a halt. Human engineers had designed the extraction systems, and only they knew how to repair them when things broke down. Medical facilities across Council space were rationing. Supplies, humans had developed treatments for a dozen, cross-species pathogens that no one else could manufacture. The Zeltron representative who had laughed at Ambassador Chen's warning now looked less confident. This is temporary disruption. We simply need time to adjust our systems. Adjust to what? Snapped a Mindaran representative. Adjust to not having the species that held our entire infrastructure together. They weren't just soldiers and doctors. They were everywhere, doing everything we considered beneath us. Beneath us? Vexenoth's tentacles writhed. We never said we didn't have to say it, Thexara interrupted. We showed it. Every time we denied them representation while asking for more troops, every time we assigned them the dangerous jobs and gave others the credit, every time we called them useful instead of essential. Her communicator chimed with another report. She almost didn't want to read it. But she did. The Trade Consortium is reporting that 17% of all commercial contracts in Council space had human guarantors. She read aloud. Those contracts are now in default. Estimated economic impact, 3 trillion credits in the first quarter alone. 3 trillion? Someone gasped. They guaranteed contracts because human traders actually delivered, Thexara continued. They went where others wouldn't. They took routes others considered impossible. They made things work through sheer stubbornness and ingenuity. And we never noticed because it all just worked. A message flashed across the main display. It was from Earth's government, transmitted on all official council frequencies. Vexnoth opened it and Ambassador Chen's face appeared. To the Galactic Council, she said formally. We have received numerous requests for assistance with various crises. Earth wishes to clarify our position. We are willing to negotiate individual agreements with Council member species on a case-by-case basis. Our terms are simple: recognition of Earth as an equal sovereign power, fair compensation for services rendered, and formal diplomatic relations. We harbor no ill will toward the Council or its members. We simply require respect. The message ended. The chamber erupted in argument. This is extortion. They're watching us fall apart. We should send a military force. And do what? Thexara demanded. Attack them. Start a war with the species that makes up the majority of our military forces? The species that every other soldier in the galaxy has trained alongside and respects? That stopped the war talk quickly. No one wanted to say it aloud, but they all knew. If the Council went to war with humanity, a significant portion of the Council's own military might refuse to fight. Humans had earned loyalty in ways the Council never had. Vexnoth's many eyes closed one by one. We need solutions. The Vrexian invasion, the pirate attacks, the medical crisis, the infrastructure failures. We need to address all of it. We need humanity, Thexara said quietly. Then we negotiate, Vexnoth said. We discuss terms. No. The Zelthron representative's crystalline form seemed to darken. We do not negotiate with extortionists. We find other solutions. There are thousands of species in this galaxy. We will adapt. Thexara looked at her fellow counselor and saw pride that would cost lives. She had voted against humanity's inclusion too. She had believed they needed to earn their place to prove themselves worthy. Now people were dying because of that pride. How many need to die before we adapt? She asked. How much needs to collapse? How many crises need to escalate? No one answered. The chamber dissolved into smaller arguments, species blaming each other, everyone looking for solutions that didn't require admitting they had been wrong. Thexara returned to her office and looked at the casualty reports again. 4,000 dead in her sector alone. How many across all council space? How many more before pride gave way to sense? She drafted a private message to Earth's diplomatic service, requesting a confidential meeting. The Asari Confederation would negotiate separately if necessary. Some things mattered more than council unity. Outside her window the stars glittered peacefully, but Thexara knew that across the galaxy, ships were burning, people were dying, and systems were failing. All because no one had noticed the invisible threads holding everything together until those threads were cut. Humanity had been those threads. And now the galaxy was unraveling. The council delegation arrived at Luna Station 6 weeks after humanity's withdrawal. It was a modest facility by galactic standards, orbiting Earth's moon, but it represented something the council found difficult to accept. They had come here as petitioners, ambassador. Chen met them in a simple conference room with windows overlooking Earth. The blue planet hung in the darkness like a jewel, and Chen noticed several delegates staring at it. Most had never bothered to visit human space before. High Counselor Vexnoth led the delegation. Its tentacles moved in patterns that Chen's translator interpreted as carefully controlled diplomacy. Ambassador Chen, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Of course, Chen replied, gesturing to seats around the table. Please sit. The delegate settled in, or did whatever passed for sitting among their various forms. Vexnoth placed a datapad on the table. We have come to discuss the current Keman situation. The situation where the galaxy is falling apart? Chen asked pleasantly. Thexara, who had joined the delegation, made a sound like wind through reeds, a sorry embarrassment. Yes, that situation. Vexnoth's tentacles rippled with what might have been irritation at the bluntness. The Council acknowledges that humanity's departure has created certain disruptions. We are prepared to offer significant incentives for your return. I'm listening, Chen said. A seat on the Economic Directorate, Vexnoth announced. Full voting privileges. This represents a substantial elevation of human status. Chen looked at the datapad Vexnoth had pushed across the table. She read through the proposal carefully. 1 seat, on 1 directorate. What about security? What about the Scientific Council? What about the Colonial Administration Board? Those positions require more consideration. However, the Economic Directorate seat is available immediately. I see. Chen pushed the datapad back across the table. No, the room fell silent. A Thursian delegate shifted uncomfortably, its carapace clicking. Ambassador, you must understand the difficult position. I understand perfectly, Chen said. The council is offering us one seat on one committee, with no commitment to further representation. This is exactly what you've always done. Offer just enough to keep us working, never enough to give us actual power. We are trying to compromise, Vexnath said. You're trying to get back what you lost without admitting you were wrong, Chen corrected. Earth's position hasn't changed. Full representation on all major councils, or we continue as we are. As you are? The Zelthran delegate's crystalline form flashed with angry red light. You mean watching the galaxy burn? The Vrexian invasion has claimed 17 worlds. The death toll is approaching 500,000. The medical crisis in the outer colonies has killed thousands more, and Earth does nothing. Chen felt a flash of anger but kept her voice level. Earth is doing nothing? Or is Earth simply not solving problems that aren't ours while you refuse to treat us as equals? This is about egos? The Zelthron demanded. People are dying and you're worried about pride? Yes, Chen said flatly. People are dying because the Council's pride wouldn't let it give humans a voice. We warned you. We told you repeatedly what would happen if you kept treating us as servants instead of partners. You laughed at us. She pulled up her own data pad and displayed images on the room's screen. These are human soldiers who died in Council service over the past 50 years. 23,000 names. They died protecting borders that weren't ours, fighting wars we had no stake in because the Council sent them into danger and they went anyway. And when we asked for a seat at the table where those decisions were made, you denied us. The images scrolled. Young faces, old faces, faces from every human culture and background. These people died for the Council and the Council couldn't even give them a vote. So no, Counselor, this isn't about ego. This is about refusing to continue a system that treats human lives as cheap and human voices as irrelevant. Thexara spoke quietly. You're right. We were wrong. Vexanath's tentacles whipped toward her. Counselor, no, Thexara said firmly. We were wrong, and I will say it plainly. We exploited humanity. We used their soldiers, their scientists, their engineers, and we gave them nothing but empty praise. Ambassador Chen is correct. We are here because we need them, and we're still trying to avoid admitting that need means they deserve equality. The Zelthron delegate's form dimmed to a sullen orange. Even if we agree to these terms, it sets a dangerous precedent. Every species will demand equal representation. Every species should have representation proportional to their contribution and population, Chen said. That's not dangerous. That's fair. The Council cannot function with thousands of equal voices, Vexnath argued. Then reform the Council, Chen replied. That's not our problem. Our problem is simple. You need us back and we won't come back as servants. Either we're partners or we're not coming at all. Vexnath's tentacles coiled tightly. We need time to consult with the full Council. These decisions cannot be made by a delegation alone. Take all the time you need, Chen said. But while you're consulting and debating and protecting your pride, remember that people are dying. Not because Earth won't help, but because the Council won't accept help on equal terms. The delegation filed out. All except Thexara. She remained seated, looking at the images still scrolling on the screen. How many human soldiers are currently in Council space? She asked. None, Chen said. We withdrew everyone. Even from medical missions, humanitarian work, everything. Those weren't our orders, they came from the soldiers themselves. When we announced withdrawal, we expected some would want to stay to finish their missions, but they all came home. Every single one. Do you know why? Thexara shook her head. Because they were tired, Chen said. Tired of being thanked but not respected. Tired of being called heroes while being treated as tools. They came home because they wanted to be somewhere they mattered as people, not just as useful resources. The Asari Confederation wants to negotiate separately, Thexara said. We're prepared to recognize Earth as an equal power and establish bilateral relations independent of the Council. I know, Chen said. You sent a request 3 weeks ago. We've been considering it, and we're willing to talk. But understand something, Counselor. We're not interested in creating a patchwork of separate agreements. We want systemic change. If the Council is going to continue existing, it needs to exist as an organization of equals, not a hierarchy of the worthy and the useful. Thexara stood. I'll carry that message back. For what it's worth, Ambassador, I voted against your inclusion. I believed you hadn't earned it yet. I was wrong. You had earned it 100 times over. We were just too blind to see it. After she left, Chen stood alone in the conference room looking at Earth through the window. Behind her, the last image on the screen showed a young human soldier, barely 20 years old, who had died holding a medical station against raiders so civilians could evacuate. The council had given her a medal posthumously. They had never asked her opinion on the policies that put her in that situation. Chen's communicator chimed. It was Admiral Okoye. How did it go? As expected. They offered a token position and got angry when we refused. They'll be back, Okoye said. I know. The question is whether they'll come back ready to actually change, or just more desperate and willing to offer slightly better tokens. What do you think? Chen watched Earth rotate slowly below. I think some of them understand. Thexar gets it. A few others probably do too. But the Council as an institution? It's built on hierarchy and pride. Changing that will require more than a few enlightened individuals. So we wait. We build our own networks. We help species that are willing to treat us fairly, and we let the Council decide whether its pride is worth more than its survival. On the screen behind her, the faces continued to scroll. 23,000 humans who had died believing they were part of something greater. Chen was determined that if humanity ever rejoined galactic society, it would be as equals, not servants. Those 23,000 deserved at least that much. The delegation ship departed Luna Station, heading back toward Council space. Chen watched it go and wondered how many more people would die before pride gave way to pragmatism. She hoped the answer was 0, but she feared the answer would be far higher. Dr. Sarah Kamathi sat in her laboratory on Europa Station, staring at the holographic display showing the spread of Keltheran plague across the outer colonies. The red zones had expanded significantly in the past 3 days. 12 systems were now infected. The death toll had exceeded 50,000. Her communicator had been chiming constantly for hours. She had stopped answering after the 5th desperate plea from former colleagues. What could she tell them? That she had the cure and couldn't share it? That didn't make the situation any easier. The door chimed. She sighed and called, "Come in." Dr. Veln entered, his Keltheran body segments clicking softly as he moved. He was one of 3 non-human scientists who had chosen to remain with Earth's research programs after the withdrawal. "You're watching the spread pattern," he observed. "Hard not to," Sarah replied. "This strain is nastier than we thought. The mortality rate is climbing. Your people developed a cure for the predecessor strain 5 years ago," Veln said quietly. "The modifications needed would be minimal." "I know," Sarah closed the display. She couldn't look at it anymore. "I've been contacted by 7 different research facilities. They're begging for the formula. Will you give it to them?" "I can't. The formula is classified as Earth intellectual property. Releasing it without government authorization would be illegal. But more than that, Veln, they wouldn't be able to produce it anyway. The cure requires a synthesis process that uses equipment we developed specifically for this kind of work. Even if I gave them the formula, they'd need months to build the infrastructure, unless they asked Earth to produce it for them, which would require negotiating with a government they refuse to recognize as an equal," Sarah finished. "So people die while politicians protect their pride." Veln was silent for a moment. "My homeworld is in one of those red zones. My family is there." Sarah felt her chest tighten. "Veln, I'm sorry. I know. This isn't your fault." He sat down or did the Keltheran equivalent of sitting. "I chose to stay with Earth's programs because the work here is groundbreaking. Your species approaches science differently than ours. You're willing to try things others consider impossible. It's frustrating and brilliant in equal measure. If your family needs evacuation, they won't leave. The quarantine is absolute. No ships in or out." He paused. "I spoke with my sister yesterday. She's a doctor at the central hospital in our capital city. She told me they're losing 30 patients a day. The hospitals are overwhelmed. They're triaging, deciding who gets treatment and who gets pain relief while they die." Sarah's hands curled into fists. "This is insane. We have the cure. We could have treatment centers operational in weeks. But instead, we're all pretending this is about politics and treaties when it's really about people dying for no reason." Her communicator chimed again. This time it was Admiral Okoye on the official military channel. "Dr. Kimathi, please report to Conference Room 7 immediately." Sarah exchanged a look with Veln and headed down the corridor. The conference room was already full when she arrived. She recognized several faces from Earth's leadership, military, scientific, and governmental. Ambassador Chen appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from Luna Station. Thank you for coming on short notice. We're here to discuss the deteriorating situation in Council space. Admiral? Okoye pulled up a star map. Current crises. The Vrexian invasion has taken 29 worlds. Estimated deaths now exceed 800,000. Pirate activity has increased 400% across major trade routes. Economic losses are approaching 12 trillion credits. Infrastructure failures are cascading across multiple sectors. And now we have the Keltharan plague. The Council has made no progress toward accepting our terms? Someone asked. No, Chen said. They continue to offer minor concessions while refusing fundamental change. Meanwhile, we're receiving communications from individual species requesting bilateral agreements. How many species? Sarah asked. 47 have made formal inquiries. 17 have submitted actual proposals for diplomatic relations independent of the Council. The Council is fragmenting. Another admiral, a man named Torres, leaned forward. We're also picking up concerning chatter. There's a faction within the Council pushing for a military solution. That caused a stir. Chen raised her hand for quiet. Explain. They're arguing that Earth is holding the galaxy hostage, that we're criminals who need to be brought to justice. They're proposing a combined military force to compel our cooperation. That's insane, Sarah said. We didn't attack anyone. We just left. Legally, they might have a case, Torres continued. There are arguments about abandoned obligations, treaties broken, lives lost due to our withdrawal. It's thin, but desperate people justify desperate actions. Okoye shook her head. Let them try. Any military force they send will have to contend with the fact that most soldiers in Council space trained alongside humans. Many consider humans brothers and sisters in arms. The Council would be ordering soldiers to attack the very people they respect most, which could lead to mutiny, fracturing their military further, Torres agreed. But it doesn't mean they won't try. Chen's expression was grim. This is escalating beyond what we anticipated. When we withdrew, we expected difficulty. We didn't expect complete systemic collapse. Maybe that should tell us something, Sarah said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Maybe it should tell us that humanity wasn't just important to the Council. Maybe we were essential in ways we didn't even realize. And maybe that means we have a responsibility. We tried responsibility, someone argued. They threw it back in our faces, I know. But I'm sitting here watching 50,000 people die from a plague we can cure. My colleague's family is in one of those infected zones. How many more need to die before we decide that being right isn't worth the cost? Dr. Kimathi, Chen said gently. No one here wants people to die. But if we give in now, we return to the same system that exploited us. Nothing changes. Then we need to find another option, Sarah said firmly, because this situation is spiraling out of control, and when it finally explodes, the death toll is going to be catastrophic. For everyone. Velen had followed her to the conference room and now stood in the doorway. May I speak? Chen nodded. I am not human, Velen said, but I have worked with humans for 7 years now. I've seen how you approach problems. You don't wait for perfect solutions. You find workable solutions and improve them as you go. Right now, you're waiting for the Council to accept perfect terms. Meanwhile, people die. What do you suggest? Okoye asked. Help us anyway. Not officially. Not through formal agreements. But help us. Share the cure for the plague. Send medical teams as volunteers, not as official Earth representatives. Let individual captains decide if they want to patrol trade routes. You withdrew from the Council, but you didn't withdraw from the galaxy. There are ways to help without returning to the system that failed you. The room fell silent. Sarah felt her heart pounding. It was exactly what she had been thinking but hadn't dared say. That would undermine our negotiating position, someone argued. Would it? Chen asked thoughtfully. Or would it show that Earth is capable of being the bigger power? That we can provide aid without requiring submission? It could also save lives while we figure out a permanent solution, Sarah added. The cure for Keltharan plague is just sitting in our databases. My team could have production running in 72 hours. We could save Velen's family. We could save tens of thousands. Chen was quiet for a long moment. This would need to be carefully managed. We can't appear to be backing down from our demands. But humanitarian aid, that's different. That's showing the galaxy who humans really are. It's also showing the Council what they're giving up, Okoye said slowly. If we provide aid while maintaining our position, it demonstrates that we're not the problem. They are. The discussion continued for another hour. Plans were formed, contingencies discussed, risks evaluated. In the end, a decision was made. Earth would begin providing humanitarian assistance to any species that requested it, independent of formal diplomatic relations. Medical aid, disaster relief, emergency protection services, all available on a case-by-case basis. But Earth's political demands remained unchanged. As the meeting broke up, Velen approached Sarah. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Don't thank me yet," Sarah replied. "We still need to actually produce and distribute the cure, but you're going to try. That's what matters." Sarah watched him leave and felt something settle in her chest. Maybe they couldn't save everyone. Maybe they couldn't fix everything. But they could save some people, fix some things, and maybe that was how you changed a galaxy. Not through grand gestures or political victories, but through small acts of compassion multiplied across billions of lives. 4 months after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Council chamber stood half empty. Representatives from 43 species had officially withdrawn to form separate diplomatic relations with Earth. Another 30 had stopped attending sessions altogether. The grand chamber that once symbolized galactic unity now echoed with absence. High Counselor Vexnoth looked at the scattered delegates and felt something it had never experienced in 300 years of service. Despair. The Zelthron representative, one of the few original members still present, addressed the chamber. "The situation is unsustainable. We must face reality. The council as we knew it is dead." No one argued. There was no point. The numbers told the story clearly enough. The Vrexian invasion had been stopped, not by council forces but by human volunteers working with local defense militias. The Keltharan plague had been contained, by human medical teams providing treatment free of charge. Pirate attacks had decreased because human captains had resumed patrols, though now they reported to no central authority. Everywhere the council looked, humans were solving the galaxy's problems. But they weren't doing it through the council. They were doing it around the council, making the institution increasingly irrelevant. "We could still salvage this," Vexnoth said, though even it didn't sound convinced. "If we make a formal offer of full membership to humanity." "We did that," Texara interrupted. 2 weeks ago. Earth rejected it. They rejected it? We offered them everything they asked for." "No," Texara said patiently. "We offered them seats on the major councils. But the power structure remained the same. The inner circle still makes real decisions. We were offering them visibility, not actual equality." The Zelthron's crystalline form flickered with anger. "What more do they want? They're getting everything they wanted without even being members anymore." "That's exactly the point," said a new voice. Everyone turned. Ambassador Chen stood at the chamber entrance alone. She walked down the center aisle toward the podium, not the back podium where junior members stood, but the central platform usually reserved for high counselors. No one stopped her. "You're right," Chen said, addressing the Zeltron. "Earth is getting what it wanted. We're providing services to species that treat us fairly. We're building a network of genuine partnerships based on mutual respect. We're doing meaningful work that saves lives, and we're doing all of it without you." "Then why are you here?" Vexnoth asked. "Because 43 species asked me to come. They want to know if there's a path forward that doesn't require choosing between Earth and the Council. They want to know if we can build something better than what existed before." Chen activated a holographic display. It showed a new organizational structure, not a hierarchy with senior and junior members, but a network of equal partners. "This is the Galactic Assembly. Every member species has equal representation. Decisions are made through coalition building and consensus, not through inner circles and privileged positions. Contributions matter, but so do voices. It's not perfect, but it's fair." "You want to dissolve the council," the Zeltron said flatly. "I want to evolve it," Chen corrected. "The council served a purpose for thousands of years, but it was built on assumptions that no longer work, that some species are naturally superior, that contributions can be separated from rights, that you can use people without respecting them. Those assumptions are breaking the galaxy apart." Thexara stood. "The Asari Confederation supports this proposal. We have already established bilateral relations with Earth, and those relations have shown us that partnership works better than hierarchy." Other voices joined in. Species that had suffered most during the crisis spoke in favor. species that had relied most heavily on human assistance supported the change. Even some traditional council members, seeing the writing on the wall, acknowledged that reform was necessary, but not everyone agreed. "This is capitulation," the Zelthron declared. "This is letting one species dictate terms to the entire galaxy because they held us hostage." "We didn't hold anyone hostage," Chen said tiredly. "We simply stopped working for free. The galaxy fell apart because it was built on exploitation. That's not our fault. You could have stayed and worked for change from within. We tried that for 247 years. Chen's voice rose. "We petitioned. We requested. We demonstrated our value again and again, and you denied us every single time. So forgive us for concluding that working within the system was never going to change the system." Vexnoth raised a tentacle for silence. "Ambassador Chen, let me ask you directly. If we agree to this new structure, will Earth rejoin galactic society?" "If the assembly is truly based on equality, yes. If it's just the council with a new name and the same power structures, no. Earth is done being useful without being valued. And if we refuse? If the remaining council members choose to maintain our current structure?" Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then you maintain it. We won't stop you, but good luck finding anyone to staff your peacekeeping forces, operate your medical facilities, or maintain your infrastructure. The species that are joining the assembly include most of your actual workforce. You'll be a council of administrators with no one to administer." The harsh truth of that statement settled over the chamber. The council had always been run by elder species who considered themselves natural leaders. But the actual work, the dangerous, difficult, unglamorous work, had been done by younger species who were now walking away. The Zelthron's form dimmed, flickering between colors. "This is the end of thousands of years of tradition." "Yes," Chen agreed. "It is, and something new is beginning. You can be part of that new beginning, or you can cling to a tradition that no longer serves anyone. But choose quickly, because the galaxy is moving forward with or without you." Over the next 3 weeks, the remaining council members debated, argued, and ultimately accepted reality. The Galactic Council was formally dissolved and reformed as the Galactic Assembly. The charter was signed by 73 species in the first week. More joined daily. The signing ceremony took place on Luna Station, symbolically placing humanity at the center of the new order, not through domination, but through partnership. Ambassador Chen stood with representatives from across the galaxy as they affixed their signatures, marks or energy patterns, to the founding document. Thexara approached her during the reception afterward. "I voted against you," the Asari said. 4 months ago, I thought you hadn't earned your place. I want to apologize formally." "You already apologized," Chen said. "I apologized for my actions. Now I'm apologizing for my thinking. I was wrong in every way possible. You had earned your place 1,000 times over. We were just too proud to see it." Chen accepted the apology with a nod. Around them, representatives mingled. Not in hierarchical groups based on status, but in casual mixing of elder and younger species, military and civilian, scientific and commercial. It looked less formal than the old council gatherings. It also looked more real. Dr. Sarah Kimathi stood with Veln, who had brought his sister to the ceremony. She had survived the plague, thanks to the cure that human scientists had distributed freely. "Your government saved my life," Veln's sister said. "Thank you." "We almost didn't," Sarah replied honestly. "We almost let pride and politics stand in the way of doing what was right. I'm glad we found another path." Admiral Okoye stood with her counterparts from a dozen species, discussing joint training programs for the new Assembly peacekeeping forces. "It's going to be different this time," a Mandarin admiral said. "We're not asking you to do the dangerous work alone. We're working together." "That's all we ever wanted," Okoye replied. In orbit above Luna, ships from hundreds of worlds gathered, not for conflict, but for celebration. Human vessels mingled with alien craft in patterns that would have been impossible 4 months ago. The barriers were falling. On Earth, people watched the ceremony with mixed emotions. Some felt vindicated, others felt sorrow for the lives lost during the crisis. Most just felt relieved that the confrontation was over and partnership had begun. Chen stood at the viewing window after the ceremony ended, looking at Earth below. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Vexnoth approached, its tentacles moving in patterns of respect. "I wanted to thank you," the former High Counselor said. "You could have destroyed us. You could have left us to collapse completely. Instead, you offered a path forward. We never wanted destruction, Chen said. We just wanted to be treated fairly. That's all any species wants. The galaxy is changing rapidly. Some species are having difficulty adjusting to equality. They'll adapt, Chen said confidently. Change is always hard. But this change is necessary. The old way was breaking the galaxy apart. This new way, it won't be perfect, but it will be better. It will be fair. Vexenoth was quiet for a moment. Your species is remarkable. You're stubborn, confrontational, and entirely unwilling to accept unfair treatment. But you're also compassionate, innovative, and willing to forgive. It's a strange combination, Chen laughed. That's humanity in a nutshell. We'll fight you if you push us, but we'll help you if you respect us. It's not complicated. Perhaps it shouldn't have taken a crisis for us to learn that lesson. Perhaps not, but better late than never.